So in real life, it is the start of week 6, but I'm about to review all the week 3s. So they are in order of number of turns used in the battle. So first off, we have the JoJo, we have Josh and Joey. And there's a Komodo lead to a Blissey. Ordinarily, that would be fantastic for Joey over here. But he's a somewhat new player, and new players tend to overestimate Komodo because he gets this clangorous soul thing. And, was it 32%? What? That's a weird percentage. He loses a third of his health and gets 5 stat boosts. And, his stats are not high to begin with, so that's why new players tend to not use him very often. And he's super weak to fairy, and so why did he get... Oh, and he put throat spray on it. And so throat spray, since he used a sound based move, raised his special attack by 1 stage. I thought that was pretty cool. And turn 1, totally fine. He gets hit by a seismic toss, uses clangorous soul, gets double special attack. But here's the blunder here. Blissey is the most specially defensive Pokemon out there. And he used Aura Sphere against him. Now, if he used Drain Punch, he would have been unbeatable. He would have swept this whole team. But he was going for Throat Spray. He wanted to use it. So he thought a special set would be good. And so he loses that to only do 35% to a Blissey. And Blissey gets the chance to set up rocks, which is not great for the rest of his team, especially not for Volcarona. Leech Seed on Blissey is always good because its high hit point stat means that Leech Seed heals more. And in the chat, there's someone named Alice, and now we've never seen this person, so this might be him or Eric with a fake account pretending he has a girlfriend. But anyway, he has a cheerleader in the chat, says, "Go Joey, go, go, go. You can do it, Venusaur." Things are not looking well for this Blissey right now. Well, not fantastic, but they're... And in comes the Melmetal on the Sludge Bomb immunity. Now, if he had somehow read that and used Earth Power twice, he would have won that. This is a Choice Banded Melmetal, this is a Choice Specs Walking Wake, and this is a Choice Scarf Nihilego. We find that out in the post-match discussion. Venusaur probably had Solar Beam, Volcarona probably had Solar Beam, and despite its name, Thunderous Kick is a fighting type move that lowers the defense. He counts on him not having Solar Beam, so he switches into his water. For some reason, this Charizard does not have Solar Beam, and if he had, he wouldn't have had to lose it because it was speed tied with the Zapdos G, in case he was worried about the resist of the grass. And he loses it And Ceaseless Edge sets up a spike, which they often forget to do the animation for. And the sun gets plenty of time to be out. He gets the stat speed boost from photosynthesis. Hydro-Steam is boosted by sun. And it's specs. So nothing's gonna outspeed it. Even if it has a scarf, which nothing does on this team, as we find out. And he pretty much just sweeps. There wasn't really anything he could do about that. I think Walking Wake even would have won against Komodo after the photosynthesis boost. Yeah, that's why it's called Walking Wake, because it destroys everything in its walking path. Here is another good one. We have Jack versus the Chartwig trio, which is Chartwig, Ken, and Ron, both from the East Coast Nintendo Club. And this is what they do when they hang out. They build these teams. And they go very well. So this looks like a bad lead. He's going to get a free opportunity to set up Aurora Veil, and then he's going to be able to use like Ice Shard or Freeze Dry. No, he goes for Nasty Plot. Interesting. And he flexes. He says, no, we can afford to set up a Stealth Rock, because there's a Focus Sash. And they knew that this guy was coming, so he's able to Iron Head. Now, if snow was the same as hail, this wouldn't have worked, because he would have taken the hail damage. But that stat boost didn't really matter as much as an Aurora Veil would have ultimately. Not that you can predict that. And then he knows that he's going to try to Rapid Spin. And even if he doesn't Rapid Spin, there's not much consequence to the Jellicent, so he can be totally fine and strike back with a Scald or Hydro Pump. And Chartwig said, my plan worked. They thought I was crazy while we were building this Garchomp set. Volt Switch doesn't do much. He figures he can survive enough to burn the Kyurem in case it's a physical set, or at least do the damage for it. No, it's a special set. He switches into his special Wall, possibly an Assault Vest Pokemon, possibly a Choice Specs, and in this turn, he uses Future Sight. He's able to get the Rapid Spin off to protect Kyurem. I don't think Rapid Spin was too big of a priority ultimately. And he can Volt Switch in with a Focus Blast. Right now his team has 4 fighting weaknesses, so he can use Focus Blast as much as he wants. And he has Shadow Ball just for the Latios. Supposedly his 4th slot is something for the Ninetales. We don't get to find that out. And you can tell Jack is probably not used to Future Sights, because then he would have switched in his Greninja. Or he was intentionally sacrificing his Ogerpon to the potential Focus Blast. Chartwig uses Shadow Ball in anticipation of the switch into Latios, and doesn't expect to handle whatever Dark Pulse or U-turn on the Reuniclus, so he switches into something that'll resist Dark. And he just revealed that he is not a Scarfed Greninja. Oh wow, Meowscarada has a higher base speed than Greninja. Supposedly this is a Choice Scarf Meowscarada, because otherwise how would he have that kind of confidence? He's able to U-turn and knock out the Iron Tread Sacrifice, because there are no... I don't know if Fairy resists Bug, but there's no Fairy Bug resists anymore. Iron Treads would have resisted it, but it didn't have enough hit points for that to matter. Gets hit with the Dark Pulse, and it does 55, which is pretty good. The Focus Blast misses out of... How many times did he use it? At least two times. And this Meowscarada is so threatening to his Greninja on a regular basis. I think he switches in his Meowscarada into Greninja twice. And neither of those times Greninja used U-turn. And he gets the third Focus Blast hit, which is about right. He hit 3 times and missed once. Corviknight is able to tank the Dark Pulse, the Life Orb, stab Dark Pulse. Right now, I think what Chartwig is trying to do is see if there's any way he can keep his 6 Pokemon to maximize his score. Otherwise, he could have skipped straight into this Garchomp switch here. Or he's trying to lower his hit points from the Life Orbs. He's able to do just enough to do a Water Shuriken because he knows he's not going to outspeed this Meowscarada. This Reuniclus has healed so much damage from all these regenerators. And he tries to sack it, because if he sent in Corviknight to tank the Draco Meteor, even if it did well, I don't think Corviknight could have done that much to it. Like, maybe if it had U-turn, but... And on to the next one. Oh, sorry. Spoilers. Just erase that from your memory. We have Taco versus Peter. We seem to have a clear sand team and just the general Taco team that's been tried and true for 7 years. At least 7 to 11 or plus. Alright, so we get a Pinsir and Archaludon lead. Let's see why he did not use Earthquake. They both switch. And Peter got really unlucky because he just happened to switch someone who was really bad against Ferrothorn. Now, why would he switch in his Gastrodon? Because ground only resists Poison, Rock, and Electric. So, why? Oh dear. Maybe he had Haze on Gastrodon. I don't even know if it gets Haze. And then he switches back his Archaludon and gets hit by a Stealth Rock. And then he's able to set up his Iron defenses. And his 1 Iron defense is able to do 55% to Oh, things are not looking good for Peter. He brings in the Sandstorm on exactly the wrong turn. Because he's just trying to do the damage. He doesn't care that his Gyro Ball would be, or Gyro Ball would be resisted by Archaludon. Oh. So here is where we find something out. Since he used knockoff and got knocked out from the knockoff, for some reason that means that his Rocky Helmet was not knocked off. We're all very confused. Oh, and the Scale Shot misses, and so does the Leech Seed, so it doesn't really matter. All that got lost was a Sandstorm turn. And there's that Leech Seed again. Luckily he had Fire Fang. But he did not want to get hit by a Choice Scarf Nidoking. He doesn't have any fairies because he knows that he's locked into the Scale Shot. So both of them know all four of the moves on Mega Garchomp. The only one it's a secret from is the audience. I think it should be available to the audience. I think we should be able to see it. And alright, so this next move, he gets hit by the Scale Shot. He only has 22% left to survive off of. And with this Garganicle's last breath, he doesn't use Recover. He doesn't wait for this, he doesn't try to stall out the Sandstorm turns or reduce his defense here. Or even outpace it with his leftovers. And maybe hope for a low roll on the Scale Shot, because sometimes it's only going to hit 3 times or 2 times. Or even miss. Oh, and he can also stall out the PP-Ps. He prioritizes the Stealth Rock. I think he's expecting a switch. Yeah, even Protect would have been better. But that's how he ends up losing his Garganicle. Now, Gastrodon can probably resist his whole set. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but Sand Force... Since the sand was up, all of Ditto Garchomp's attacks were stronger. And he put Sandstorm manually on Gastrodon, which was kind of interesting. And he's expecting an Earth Power, but that's not what he does. He has Weather Ball. That was a cool move, because Zapdos lost so much. He also had Weather Ball. Even though nothing's weak to rock, he just wanted to show off that he had Weather Ball. And... oh. Yeah, everything is either weak to rock or ground here. So there wasn't really a great switch in. That just seemed like a loss there, though. Oh, and he doesn't even test to see if this is a Choice Scarf Nidoking by sending in his Landorus. He just gives up. He sacrifices his... oh, dang it. His whatever it was. Yeah, his Archaludon. He sacrifices it. He thought, oh, it must be a Life Orb. And we don't get to find out what this Landorus set is either. We're the only ones it's a secret from. And he resists the poison, that's nice. But he didn't learn from last time, because if he switches in his Ditto again, after getting the speed boost. So the reason Garchomp Mega is a lower tier than regular Garchomp is because he can't have an item. But this is one of the only times where Garchomp Mega has an item. Now I assume he switched out to reset the defense. Drop. And it still has a chance to miss, but it didn't. If he had gotten the scale shot miss and then hit with his own scale shot, he would have been able to. Yeah, he would have beat the Nidoking. That could have gone each way. And he said, there's a comment from Peter that Ditto got more than 3 hits on each scale shot, and the real one got only 2 hits on each of the 3s. I can't verify that, I'm sorry. I missed a post-match discussion. This is for Chartwig versus Jack. He says, rocks were the important thing to hurt switching and scout items. But since he didn't go for the kill turn 1, it was a free kill. Ken is pointing out that we could have gotten a 5-0 because of Protean changes. They didn't know that Protean was different. It only changes type the first time you use it now. I was just watching the train wreck happen on my phone while I was at a panel. Because he had someone else play for him, supposedly. So Peter's explanation is that he forgot that the Ditto would have the Choice Scarf and the Speed Boost. And Alex says, yeah, Ditto's a menace. As a player who usually runs a very setup, sweep-oriented playstyle, Taco has given me a lot of trouble over the years. And Taco says, I was sure I was going to miss that last scale shot to make up for all the hacks. Taco says, I sacrificed much lactation goo to the Hax gods before this fight. I think they appreciated my offerings and blessed me on this day. And Peter says, if I could have given my Mega Garchomp loaded dice, I would have. Next up, we have Rodney versus Dylan. And I'm going to play it on normal up until he loses his Landorus, because that's when everything goes wrong. Alright, he prioritizes the Stealth Rock because he is a Gen 6 player, so he knows to make sure Stealth Rock is out to mess with Talonflame. He gets some bad luck with the Discharge Paralyze, which he really needed to not happen. He has a Sticky Web on his team, which I think only really affects his Iron Crown, because he has 2 floaters and 2 really naturally slow guys. And Politoed, I think, is just slower than all of these to begin with. It's uncommon to see a scarfed Politoed, but it's not necessarily impossible. And he goes for Dark Pulse, sees that it does 41%, changes the Thunderbolt. Oh gosh. He did not have any answers to Bolt Beam. Yeah, Bolt Beam beats everybody except... It beats 4 of them, okay? He's able... Oh! No, Darkrai is faster than Noivern, who's very, very fast. So, he attempts to use Hypnosis, which is a decent choice, but not as good as Ice Beam. And here we get Goodra, who resists the Hurricane. Alright, a little faster. And then he tries to use Future Sight, just like whoever it was. Yeah, it was Chartwig who used Future Sight. Yeah, with his Reuniclus. I think this came after. Alright. Toxapex is doing pretty well. Getting some of those regenerator heals. He expects a switch into who knows whom. Thunderbolt. Oh, he just didn't know that Steel was immune to Toxic. But if that had happened, oh gosh. Alright. So this Landorus is the only thing that can defeat this Goodra. What's gonna happen to it? Oh, Darkrai gets lost to the Stealth Rocks. And if he had somehow known that that was gonna happen, he'd have been able to have a Swords Dance. But he gets hit with the Fake Out and the Toxic combo. Oh. Ideally, you would want to switch into Iron Crown or Skeledirge. But he goes to beat this Medicham. And that's where it all goes wrong. He just gets walled by this Goodra. Oh, wait, oh gosh, what are they saying? And they're just talking about their internet connection. Everybody is getting kicked out of the room, and they're fine. This Goodra doesn't even have any form of healing. He's just resists everything so much. And this is nothing but special attackers. He might have Assault Vest. That makes sense. Oh, Scald isn't enough to do that last 8%. Yeah, he gets walled by the Goodra. He might have been able to get a few Regenerator turns to get a couple more Scalds, but I don't think he was making it through these guys. Talonflame never comes out. And Rodney complains about Goodra. Next we have Alex versus David. We get the Excadrill and Tinglu lead. Tinglu is probably the advantaged one here because of its Vessel of Ruin, which lowers the attack of both Pokemon, every Pokemon on the field. And he is also able to do potentially ground damage to the Excadrill. David knows he's fine enough to set up a Stealth Rock. The lead is oddly familiar. It's a lot like Chartwig's. Chartwig's battle seems to have been influential on both this lead, the Focus Sash Stealth Rock, and the Future Sight. The Earthquake does very necessary damage here. Okay, he was trying to Earthquake the Tinglu, but he got a little lucky and he was able to switch into Hatterene, expecting a fighting move to get quadruple resisted. But instead we get the Rapid Spin, because he knows that a Rapid Spin will serve two purposes to it. It will be able to knock out the Excadrill, also raise its speed, and get rid of the Stealth Rock, because damage was not that important. So he U-turns out of there because he knows he can't handle much from the Hatterene. He can't handle a Dazzling Gleam, a Psychic, or a Nuzzle. Here's the Slowking. Oh, it gets hit by the Nuzzle. Nuzzle is a great move. And he's able to Baton Pass to the Excadrill to give it another chance to win. And he gets lucky, and it's a immunity, because nobody expects a Baton Pass. And he does not want to have his Slowking Galar in on that Earthquake, because it'll get knocked out. And he just puts the Stealth Rock back up. Earthquake is only able to do 28, but minus 6. He decides that's fine. Ruination, I didn't know that this would be able to do. Ruination will cut their hit points in half. If they only have one hit point, I didn't know that it would reduce the final hit point. Ruination is a pretty good move. Oh, and that pivot. Pivot is so helpful. And everyone knows how dangerous an Azumarill can be if you allow it to be. And his only water resist is crippled. So David is pretty confident that he's gonna be scared of this Azumarill. And so he's able to bounce the Will-O-Wisp right back at him. He doesn't mind getting hit by the Hydro Pump because he can't risk switching in Dragonite or Azumarill into, or even Latios, into a Volt Switch or a Will-O-Wisp. Latios would have been a fine switch in. He agrees with me, look. But he didn't want to be at the disadvantage of a potential Volt Switch, so... Because if he had Volt Switched into Low Kicks, that would not have been good for him. Well, no. Then he could just sacrifice the Hatterene later. He makes very good use of Grimmsnarl every battle. But that's pretty much what Grimmsnarl does. If it's there, it's setting up screens. So he knew that Brick Break was very important. Imagine how scary this Azumarill would be behind two screens and switched in against something with a parting shot on it. He's able to knock off the Citrus Berry. That might even be more damaging than whatever else he was gonna do. Rotom does not like having this low of hit points against these Aqua Jets, but thanks to knocking off that Citrus Berry, he's able to knock out with a First Impression, which has priority over Aqua Jet. He U-turns out of there because he knows he's not going to get Thunder Waved, because Thunder Wave with a Prankster user wouldn't work on a Lokix. Now, he switches out on purpose. Why does... because... I don't know why he doesn't Parting Shot. And this must be a Scarfed Latios in order to outspeed that +1 Quaquaval. So now he knows. I probably would have sent in low kicks. So this must be a Scarfed Enamorus, but he just revealed that his Latios is Scarfed and would hit the Enamorus with a Luster Purge. Fortunately for Alex, he gets the knockout on Grimmsnarl. He's probably gonna Thunderbolt? No, he's Shadow Balled. Because that's the best thing against the Slowking. He wanted to hit the Slowking. He also has a Shadow Ball. Well, that was a little silly. And he is very advantaged here. He has a Reflect. Well, that's not going to affect it, but he's at full health, he's against a paralyzed Pokemon, and he's able to set up a Dragon Dance pretty well. He says, I can go for a second one. He gets a paralyzed turn. He goes for a third one. He said, oh, he gets hit by a Sludge Bomb for once and gets poisoned and thinks, oh, I can't survive enough of that. This was like Focus Sash the whole time. Focus Sash has fallen out of fashion. It's a fashion accessory because there's just so many hazards. There's so many priorities. There's so many double hit moves. They are discussing that first impression would not be faster than extreme speed. Things ended up working very well from the Slowking getting knocked out. David says, I got really lucky with those paralyses. Because I don't think it would have made much of a difference whether his Dragonite was +3 or +1 attack. And our last and longest battle is Azoth versus James. So we get the obvious lead of Glimmera and the good counter lead of Caesar, who gets Bullet Punch and Defog. I don't think Glimmera can get Hidden Power Fire, but that would have been really cool if that's what he put on the set. Because that's the bad thing about anything with a 4x weakness. I don't think I've seen any players besides me use Hidden Power. Because it's banned in at least one of the leagues I'm in. He thinks he's safe to set up Stealth Rock, he thinks he's safe to use Earth Power, but he defogs at exactly the right time and knocks it out. There's no telling what's on this Mew set, but it's probably got a fire move, so he switches out into a Fire Resist. And he scouts out what kind of set this has. How did he know it was going to use Earth Power? That's crazy. He's able to use Toxic on it and not get affected by the Synchronize because it's a poison type. You can't poison the poison type. For some reason, he puts a third move on there, which is Dragon Pulse. Not Nasty Plot, not Roost, not Calm Mind, not Baton Pass. And he wants to defog this last Poison Spike. And at the same time, he gets rid of the Psychic Terrain, which lowers the power of this expanding force that Indeedee about to use and allows Scizor to use Bullet Punch more often. He expected he would be in a situation where he would switch in as Scizor and not be able to Bullet Punch and then want to get rid of the terrain. And there's 2 terrains, so that's extra helpful. And a very, very obvious hazard setter. He doesn't expect James to stay in with his Indeedee, so he uses Flip Turn for the advantage. Now, here's what James can do. He can switch in his Indeedee, just in case he's about to try to use Bullet Punch for the knockout. But if he uses U-Turn, his Indeedee is knocked out. So, Scizor is not threatened by this Tapu Bulu at all. So, he's able to make whatever decision he feels like. He's not even threatened by this Indeedee. So he takes the close combat, totally fine, and uses U-Turn. Into a very strong attacker. Uses Blue Flare. Twice trying to get the burn, but he gets paralyzed. Because what can you do about that? He doesn't have anything that can stop a paralyze. And oh no, you can't let anything get a substitute. But he encored the substitute. He was just looking at his moves and he thought, you know, between fire and bug, everything's gonna get hit pretty hard by it. So I can just put on some weird support moves just in case those work. And even though he's paralyzed, he's still faster than the slow start Regigigas. And he encores him to using substitute every turn, which isn't going to do him any good. Gives him free reign to switch into Crobat without getting body slammed or thunder waved. And Crobat might have Infiltrator, so this substitute might not matter. So we saw that this Crobat had Toxic. He could have gotten a free Toxic turn. Nothing would have really liked it. But if he had used Toxic, he might have gotten a Sneasler switch in, so he didn't want to risk that. But he got it anyway. He's ultimate. He's fine with it. What would have been... Every time I see this Crobat do something, I am sad that you put Whirlwind instead of Brave Bird. Because Brave Bird would have KO'd the Regigigas, it would have KO'd this Sneasler, and I think it would have even KO'd this Tapu Bulu. But... he expected Mew to have Nasty Plot, Sneasler to have Swords Dance, and Tapu Bulu to have Swords Dance, and, no, Whirlwind has a negative priority, so he would have been able to just use Brave Bird. Oh, he got the burn, but it didn't matter because he doesn't even have Brave Bird. He just switches into his special wall because he knows that Mew was a dedicated special attacker. Who does not have any support moves. Is it an Assault Vest Mew, maybe? It took at least 29% from a Moonblast. And most of that was toxic damage, so we don't even know. Why does he use Smart Strike? maybe he didn't know that Primarina was neutral to Smart Strike. Maybe he was expecting a Crobat switch, because he should have just used Wood Hammer, right? Yeah, Bullet Punch wouldn't have been enough to do that. Thunder Wave doesn't work on him anymore. He got the better of the statuses for him. I don't know why he doesn't Toxic. I think he's just leaving him there because it's better to keep him alive. He could have survived a return if he roosted. He didn't need that knockout. Oh. Why did you Swords Dance? Now, why does he not U-turn? I don't know. He might have some secret fire move like Mystical Fire somewhere. And he got the Cork Drive to get fast. So now he's got a... He's just being extra cautious. Iron Boulder could have almost certainly knocked out Tapu Bulu with his whatever. Oh, maybe he doesn't even have a steel move. I'm sorry. Anyway, he'd made the right choice. It's safer to switch in Caesar no matter what there. And he got a 6-0 for this week. So yeah, thanks for watching. That's the those guys. They did it's nice being a part of this LSBA.